You're playing for your glove?
My UFC debut glove. Who the winner gets it, so I'm trying not to lose it. I'm playing for it. I'm trying to win my own glove. Let's go! Where are we going? Oh, this guy's one shot up here. God, dude, I just fucked up bad. Damn it, dude, that sucks. Oh my god, you guys got lucky. My controller died. No, that's just an excuse I'm gonna make up in my head so I feel better about myself. OG, girl, send me your guys' PayPal. Send me your, and I need your addresses too. You having a good day? Yesterday, I did my first Fortnite tournament, and it was fucking fun. I think it was a 7-hour long one. We had like 20 teams. It was duo squads. It was like a Fortnite Friday kind of rule set. The winner got $100 and my signed UFC gloves. I took second place. I was trying to win, so I didn't have to give one of my gloves away, but I lost, so I was kind of upset about that. But it was super fun. My buddy Nick that I met through Xbox, he kind of helped me run it, so thanks, you fuck cocksucker. He helped a lot. But I would like to do it every Sunday if we could. I'm trying to get like Checkmate Gaming or another couple companies to sponsor it and like help throw prizes in. But yeah, it was super fun, and I think everyone that played had a lot of fun. I do need a big dad chair. I was definitely looking into those, but appointment only. It is Sunday. We are at Fashion Square Mall. We're gonna look for some outfits. We're gonna head to Goodwill, go to some thrift shops, and try to find some sweet outfits for fight week.
Trap is romantic. She say my style doing damage. In the room, private dancer. She just wanna fuck on camera. She just wanna fuck on camera.
There's some nice pants. Oh, that.
¿Tú estás jurando? Throw the shake.
Or my fro. Because my fro changes the game too. Or no pants, just Versace underwear. I'm about to go paint.
He's doing
It is
Bob
too
Ross.
big. How's a Bob Ross pose?
I like it. You try it with this one?
I started fighting, well, it first came about, I was on a family trip in Utah. I think I was 15 years old. I think I was just got done with my freshman year of high school. Somewhere around that time frame, my buddy called and said, do you want to check out this fight gym? And prior to that, I'd never ever even considered fighting, thought about fighting, hated fighting, didn't watch it on TV. My dad would watch UFC and I would like leave the room and go do something else. I hated it, hated everything about it. But I went and the thought process behind it was like I wanted to be more self-confident, like going to school not feeling like I'm gonna get beat up or something. So the first gym we ever went to was in Helena, Montana. My first coach was Johnny Aho. And the first practice I had ever done was jiu-jitsu. That was like the first thing I ever started with. It was like I learned a triangle that day, and I remember me and my buddy Mitch Foley went to my house and was just drilling triangles. Thought it was the coolest thing ever. We were rolling hard, just kind of flopping around, didn't really know what the fuck we were doing. But then the next class I think was like a striking class, a kickboxing class, and I think we just sparred, honestly. You know, and I thought that was fun. Like I was pretty nervous, but I was athletic. I played sports my entire life: football, basketball, soccer, baseball. Literally played sports. I had a sport every month. And so we started sparring, and I loved that. That was like my favorite thing ever. Me and my buddy, I started working with this boxing guy. Also, his name was Ray Moore, and my best friend at the time was Elias Moore, and we would box. I remember we'd go downstairs and spar and just box, like just not healthy, getting hit in the head over and over, literally beating the crap out of each other. But I just loved it, and I was constantly going. I think I was going like Monday, Wednesday, Friday to the kickboxing classes, and then I turned 16, and they said, all right, let's look for a kickboxing fight. So I remember my first kickboxing fight ever. I was 16 years old. It was in Missoula, Montana. and I rode down with a guy named Bruce Gray, and it was a weird feeling. I remember like what the walkout song. I remember walking out. I remember the setup, the venue, everything about it, and it was so weird. And I've never gotten that tired in my life. It was the craziest experience ever. And I remember after, like, they announced that I had lost the fight, and I was like, I don't really remember. I don't really know how. Don't think I was like too upset about it. But the promoter came to me and said the judges messed up and you actually had won. So I remember just being like jacked. It was funny. I remember thinking, I was like, which is one of my first fights. It was sweet, but so then I fought again. My second fight, kickboxing. I was 16. Was in Helena, Montana, my hometown. Fought a kid named Matt Peterson. I beat him up real good. I remember my third kickboxing fight. I think I was 17 years old. And at this point, I was living in Hamilton, Montana, with my aunt and uncle, going to high school there. And they called and said, "Do you want to fight in Bozeman?" Or no, Butte. A kickboxing fight. I wasn't training at the time because I just moved to Hamilton, so I hadn't trained in a while, like a month or so. And I was like, absolutely. So he took that fight, beat up another kid. Things ended up not working out in Hamilton, so I moved back to Helena. And then I took another fight. So this was my fourth kickboxing fight. And this kid, they called me the morning of the fight. It was in Bozeman, like a 2-hour drive. And they said, "Hey, if you drive down here, we'll probably be able to get you a fight." So I drive down. The kid I was gonna fight ended up taking another fight with someone else. So this other kid needed a fight, and he was a college wrestler. Outweighed me by easily 25, 30 pounds. You guys can go look up this fight. It's Sean O'Malley versus Blake Green on YouTube. And I remember just sitting in I think we had the same locker room for some reason, and he was like an older guy. I was 17. I think he was like 23 or something. Like, to me, he was a lot older, a lot bigger. And he was with all his buddies, kind of like laughing, because I was little. They thought they were gonna go and beat me up. For whatever reason, I never had that in my mindset. I was like, I'm gonna go out there and beat this guy up. I don't know. I just didn't. That was my mindset going into it, and I ended up beating him up. I'd have to go back and watch the fight, but you guys should go check it out. I was 17 years old. It's kind of like the beginning. I think I've had 30 fights now, and that was my fourth fight ever. So it's pretty fun. I went back and watched a lot of all my fights on YouTube. So I had 4 kickboxing fights, and like in the middle of that, in 2019, I had a bunch of smokers, not a bunch, like 3 or 4 smoker boxing fights. I don't really know where those are at in the career, but once I turned 18, my first fight ever, MMA fight ever, I fought Stein Anderson. He was like 30 years old. I was 18. I actually just went and watched this fight. It's on YouTube as well. Sean O'Malley versus Stein Anderson. I remember going into that fight thinking, like, all right, I'm 18. I'm gonna get a job. I need to get a job if I don't win this, and like that was like a big fight for me. I don't know what would have happened if I lost, but I remember thinking, if I lose, I'm probably gonna be done. You gotta start working. Everyone pressures you into getting a job. You gotta figure life out. Like, looking back, I was 18. Imagine if I would have lost that fight and listened to like all the adults and like people telling me, all right, well, you gotta get a job, start making money. Like, I'm thankful I didn't lose that fight. But anyway, I went into that fight. He was at like 145 pounds. I weighed $143. Like, I didn't know how to cut weight. That guy was quite a bit bigger than me, but thankfully he didn't know. He knew just as much as I knew. It was pretty much a street fight, and I was just more scrappy. And I had that good mindset, like, as far as not quitting and wanting to win that fight. I mean, not quitting in the fight. Like, I was gonna do what I needed to do to win the fight, and that's a fun fight to go watch. The first punch I ever threw, I remember telling everybody, I'm gonna do a spinning back fist. I'm gonna walk him into it. And like, I've been having little setups and little tricks to my striking all the way since back when I started kickboxing. I was 16. I've had so many fights, so many little tricks and setups that I had been doing before I even knew I was doing them. So the first punch I ever threw was a spinning back fist, and it hit him right on the chin and dropped him. That fight ended up going into the second round. I head kicked him, knocked him out, and it was one of the most exhilarating feelings I'd ever felt. And I remember just I wanted to go train. I wanted to go get better. I wanted to go and fight and perform, and because I loved that everyone was watching me. Like, I knew everybody in the whole arena was watching me. And I was it was a good feeling because I'd always kind of wanted to be the center of attention when it came to sports, and I never really got that with basketball, football, baseball, soccer, because there's so many players and all that. But fighting, it's you versus that guy, who shows up, who performs better. And so I remember my second fight was in Kalispell. This kid was named Skylar Anderson, so you can go look that up. It's on YouTube as well. Sean O'Malley versus Skylar Anderson. I went in there. He was a high school wrestler. I didn't know shit. I remember watching the video. I mounted him and stood up. Like I didn't know anything. I just pretty much knew how to fight as a scrap. I didn't really know. It wasn't too technical. I was still setting things up on my feet unconsciously, just kind of. But I was good at it. I ended up beating the shit out of that kid in the first round. And then a week later, I fought in Missoula, because in Montana we just fight every weekend. Like, we fight all the time. I fought a week later. I fought this guy who was, so I was 18, I think he was in his 30s. He was like a Muay Thai guy. And at the time, I'm like, oh shit, no. And like, I kind of like, once I started doing MMA, we started kind of adding jiu-jitsu. It was pretty much learning an arm bar, doing an arm bar, and then kind of rolling. Like, wasn't much to it, just a group of guys showed up and pretended like they knew what they were doing for the most part. But we had like a decent idea compared to like having no idea. Anyway, I knew how to throw up an arm bar. I remember I dropped the dude with a spinning back fist, kind of got on top, was hitting him, ended up rolling to my back somehow. And I remember it was the first time I threw up an arm bar and popped his elbow. And I was like, oh, that made me realize how powerful jiu-jitsu is. And luckily I knew a decent arm bar, threw an arm bar. And then I fought this other kid who was a college wrestler. This was my fourth MMA fight. His name was Luis Carranza. He was a good wrestler. I went out there and it was under the lights. There was quite a bit of people. It was outside. It was fun. And this ended up being a pretty important fight for me, because Tim Welch was there, and I didn't know. I'd known of Tim just from the Bellator TV show. I'd never met him. Just knew he was kind of like he would do something with MMA. And he was there commentating. I armbarred this kid, and Tim was watching, commentating. And I met him after the fight, and I was like, "Hey, dude, what's up?" Blah blah blah. And he said, "If you ever want to come down," because he was living in Arizona, training at the lab. "If you ever want to come down and train at like a real gym and get real training in," and I was just jacked. I was like, dude, 100% yes. Called him the next day on the way back, because I was in Great Falls. I called him on the way home to Helena. I'm like, dude, I'll come down whenever. Like, I'm ready. So I think I ended up going down a couple weeks later. Corey Smith ended up helping pay for my flight, who was also a sponsor and the promoter of who I was fighting for at the time, ICF. I went down for 10 days, and I think I got there like on a Sunday to whatever, I don't know. But I trained for a full week there, and it was the worst beating I'd probably ever gotten, because at the lab, fresh guy comes in, you know, I had tattoos all over. I was not like a punk, but I looked like a punk, and I thought I was the shit, because I got done beating up everyone and doing, you know, I thought I was badass in Montana. Didn't really know the levels of training. I didn't really know that there's guys out there that are that badass. So I came to the lab, got worked over, got beat up bad. Like, I remember leaving crying, like, damn, maybe this isn't for me. Like, this is like a lot. I'm far behind. But I was getting beat up by guys in their 30s that have been training for a long time. Guys, you know, that had real experience, real training. And thankfully I didn't quit. I just kept coming. And like that week I was there, those 10 days I was there, opened my eyes like, oh shit, I can't. I literally, if I want to do anything with fighting, I have to come here. I have to be here. I went back to Montana, and I was 18 at this time. Went back to Montana. It was still continuing to train. I was training with Johnny still. I was working full time at a mentally disabled home, which was the coolest job I'd ever had. I always say, like, I never want to go back. If I ever have to work again, I would probably do a job like that. It was rewarding, and it didn't really feel like I was going to work. Feel like I was going to hang out with my friends. I think their age, the youngest was a girl, she was 24, and the oldest was a guy who was in like his 70s. And his name was Ray. He would spit on you. He would freak out. And but I drove the short bus, and I would drive him to work. And I'd pick him up. They'd be so jacked if I was driving. They're like just pumped I was on the bus, bumping some tunes. We had a good time. I'd help them with all their chores, help them make lunch, dinner, all that stuff. Make sure they're cleaning their stuff. I had to give this old lady a shower. That was not the best part of the job, but she was fun. We'd always go on walks to get the mail. Like, that was her favorite part of the day, was a walk to get the mail. And she couldn't talk because her tongue was so big. So and she had other things, but she used sign language, so she used the alphabet to talk. So we just had to spell out things. And I learned to talk to her like that. So it was cool. Anyway, I saved up $2,000. I paid off my car. I had a 2006 Nissan Altima, and I was paying, trying to pay it off, so I didn't have any bills when I went to Arizona. Saved up $2,000, packed that car, and I remember leaving. I was 19. I remember leaving at like 6 a.m. and it was a 19-hour drive. I drove straight through. I drove straight through by myself from Helena to Phoenix. Got in at like 10:30, something like that. And it was kind of like the first time meeting Mariah, Tim's girlfriend, and Mariah's family. Who we were living at Mariah's family's house, and it was like 30 minutes from the gym. And they had a bunch of dogs and cats, and I was super allergic to them. And so we ended up, Tim and I, thankfully, like those 10 days we hung out, like it went pretty good. I didn't know how to clean. I didn't know how to do all my dishes, all that shit. Like, I was 19, my mom did all that for me. So when we got in our first apartment, like, we got along pretty well. Pretty much Tim, he had lived at a bunch of places by himself and did, he was what, 24 at the time, 23 at the time. So he was, he helped me a lot learning how to live on my own, do all those things. So, but we moved like a couple miles from the gym, so it was easier to go there twice a day, because living 30 miles a day, or 30 miles away, it's 2 hours of driving there and back. So we moved closer to the gym, and I remember just training, like, literally every day. I was going in twice a day. Like, that was my life, and it still is. Like, I live that lifestyle. I go to the gyms as my priority. And I see myself getting better, faster. And, like, a lot of people show up a lot, but I was showing up every day. Like, there wasn't a day I was missing. I didn't have anything else to do. I didn't want to do anything else. I just wanted to train and get good, and eventually get in the UFC. I kept fighting. When I went to Phoenix, I ended up having, by the time I moved to Phoenix, I had like 12 fights or something like that, 14 fights. I had already had a lot of fights by the time I moved there. I think I had 5 more amateur fights when I went to Phoenix. Yeah, I had 5 amateur fights, because I'm 15-0 at the lab. I've won my last 15 fights, 10 of them pro, 5 of them were a little amateur. I lost 2 amateur fights early on in my career, both to really good wrestlers that, I didn't know how to wrestle. I didn't know jiu-jitsu. And they took me down and they figured that out. So they both choked me, or I think I armbarred and choked. But really, that just made me focus on my jiu-jitsu. Like, I did not like jiu-jitsu, and I would go every day, and I just didn't like it. And I remember I was reading a lot of books, a lot of like mind gym books and books to help me, and I think a big thing was like you learn how to do the things you don't like to do, and I just learned how to love jiu-jitsu. Now it's like a huge part of my life, and I really, like, I can see myself competing in jiu-jitsu forever outside the UFC when I'm older. And it's something, if I have kids, like, I really want my kids to get into, because it's like a way of life. It's fun. It's something you can get better at. It's something you have to deal with your ego. You just learn so much about yourself through jiu-jitsu. But yeah, I would do that. And now at this point in my career, like, I'm going in to fight El Teco, who's got jiu-jitsu tatted on his chest. I don't know how his jiu-jitsu is. I haven't really watched it. But I plan on going in there and being the superior grappler. Like, if this kid wants to take me down, I will choke him. I feel like my jiu-jitsu can be way better than his. I train with the best guys in the world when it comes to grappling, and I'm not even worried. It's weird because I remember being so scared to get taken down because I didn't know jiu-jitsu, and when I did know it, it wasn't that good. I was still far behind. It's weird, like, going in, like, even my last 2 fights going in, I feel superior to these guys on the ground. I feel like I will choke these guys if they take me down. I'm not going to go in there and try taking them down and submitting them. That's not really, I mean, when you're in the middle of a fight, whatever happens, like, if I need to do that to win, I will. But that's not my main goal. I'm not going in there trying to take him down and choke him. I'm trying to go in there and knock him out. And the way I will choke him is when he keeps shooting. if he takes me down, I will choke him. So this is actually a funny story because it's actually probably not that funny at all. My second pro fight was in Shodo, Montana. That was the main event. It was 4th of July. I flew down by myself. I didn't have Tim, didn't have Crouch, didn't have anyone in my corner. I just flew down, and it was a weird experience not having I think they were just busy, they had other fights going on or something, and I just took the fight, and I knew I would go out there and beat this guy up. So it was a weird experience going out there and I still had like people in my corner from back home that my original coach, Johnny. But yeah, so that was a cool experience. It was weird not really having, Tim wasn't there for that fight, but Tim's pretty much been there for out of the last 15, he's been there for 14. My third pro fight, it was the first time I cut to 125. I didn't know where I wanted to go. I didn't know if I wanted to stay at 35, go down to 25. So took a fight at 25, and I ended up not liking it. I made weight, made 125 pounds. The kid came in at 132. I was hitting him with some clean shots, and I just didn't feel like I could put him away. I didn't feel like I had that pop I have at 35. I had him in a couple submissions that were pretty tight. Just didn't feel like I had the juice to squeeze. And luckily, I won that fight. I wasn't feeling good. I was about puking before. Like every like engagement, every time I would throw more than one combo or one punch, I would just feel like I'm about to puke. I remember swallowing my puke in that fight a few times during some wrestling scrambles. I'm pretty sure every fighter's got a story like that. But so there's that. And then I remember before I turned pro, no, I was already pro. I busted up my ankle real good, and I couldn't wrestle. I couldn't wrestle for like 3 months, and I wanted to stay active. I wanted to do something, so I wrapped up my foot, put a boxing shoe on, and went to the boxing gym. Was working with George Garcia, and I was like, all I was doing was boxing. Literally, my life turned from MMA training to boxing training. I'd wake up, run. I was living a professional boxing lifestyle. I was a pro fight because I was already a pro MMA fighter, so I had to fight pro boxing. So I told George, I'm like, I want to take a couple boxing fights. Let's do it. I was sparring with some good guys. Ziggy's like 7-8-0, 8-0 here in Phoenix. Training. He's a really good boxer. I was sparring with high-level boxers, getting high-level coaching, and took a pro boxing fight. Went out there, fought some scrub who had like 3 pro boxing fights. Knocked him out in the first round. I dropped him 3 times. So I really liked boxing. I continued to box after that. But training for boxing wasn't the same. It's just kind of repetitive. It's like boxing every day. Every day was boxing and running, I feel like. So training MMA, you got jiu-jitsu, you got kickboxing, you have gi, no gi, wrestling. You can just box, you can kickbox, you can do all these different things. You don't have enough time to train for everything in a week. You don't have enough time. So just went back to MMA. My foot healed up, and I just broke it again last fight. But my foot's feeling good. I'm feeling good for this fight. Swimming, we're gonna start swimming a lot. That's gonna get me in real good shape. Super similar to fighting. You feel like you're drowning, you gotta keep going. It's a very good workout, and I don't know how to do it, so it makes it even that much harder. Another little good story I got, it's my UFC debut. I'm sitting in the back. Lauren Murphy fights right before me, and her corner was Crouch and Tim, who was also my corner. She was a fight before me. So I'm sitting in the back with no one. Luckily, I could see how I could freak some people out. I stayed calm. I was fine. I did my breathing exercises. I sat there, and I was just there. I was just in the now. I wasn't thinking about anything else. I was just, just enjoying being back there. But it was weird. No one was back there with me. I'm like, damn, this is like the biggest fight of my life. No one's back here, and I'm fine. I'm calm. Like, I'm gonna go out there and do what I'm gonna do, and nothing can change that. Like, so, but it was a weird experience from always having Tim back there with me and Crouch back there with me. Besides that fight in Shoto, like every fight, they were back there the whole time, all the way to walking out. It's a super weird experience being by yourself, moments before the biggest moment of your life that you're not used to being by yourself, having people back there. But I stayed super calm, and I honestly could do it again. It wasn't too bad, but I think that goes with my mindset and me being able to breathe and just be there. So that helped a lot. Yeah, and then going to that Suga fight, that last fight. Tim and I, we were just watching Connor before. We were at the fight was at T-Mobile Arena. We were at the Park Theater or Monte Carlo or whatever, right next door. So we were sitting there watching the prelims, and I watched Connor fight Eddie. Watched him walk out. You know, I like his mindset going into a fight. I like his energy. He's calm. I take tricks and tips from everybody, not just inside the cage, but outside the cage. You can't say Connor's not one of the best performers. He goes out there and performs. He stays calm, and he knows what he's got to do to go in there. And I've done that before I even knew who Connor was. But I've been able to take tricks and tips and learn things from everyone. And so I was watching Connor walk out before he fought Eddie, walk out before he fought all these guys, and just puts me in a good mindset. And so going to that Suga fight, I literally just knew, like I said in all the interviews before, I'm gonna go out there and I'm gonna beat this kid's ass. He's not gonna hit me. He literally didn't hit me. Like he didn't land anything. Like he might have hit me a couple of little shots, but nothing landed. I honestly was very disappointed. Didn't get to finish him. I wanted that finish. But you know, he didn't hit me. I beat his ass. I hurt my foot. So you know, I hurt myself more that fight than he ended up hurting me. And it's super similar to this next fight I'm going into. It's like, I'm gonna go out there and beat this guy's ass. Like, I don't expect to get hit. I go in there, going into this fight, training every fight. I've never not trained hard for a full 15 minutes. Like that's part of camp. But I think, you know, I think that's normal. Everyone trains for 15 minutes. But I expect to go out there and put this kid away early without getting hit. Like that's kind of what I expect every fight. But like I said, I'm ready for war. And, you know, against Terrion, you can see me kind of start gasping the second, come back in the third, because that's how hard I train. I have that energy in me to be able to keep going. Same with that Suga fight. It was a pretty high-paced fight. Wasn't like gassed. My foot was fucking broke, but. So that was kind of, it was 3.5 minutes left to go in the fight. So those last 3.5 minutes are kind of like a blur, because I was just in so much pain, and I was like, oh, it was a weird feeling. I remember watching the video back now, when I looking into my eyes, I could feel like I just see how much pain I was in, and then like right when the fight's over, I just let it all out. But I was in good shape for that fight. I'm gonna be in good shape for this fight, and that's super important going into a big fight, being in shape. And like everyone knows that, but are you training hard for a 15-minute fight? And like I always am. So now I'm at this point in my career. They just told me, well, originally I wanted to be the main event on Fox. Connor would be the main event on the pay-per-view. That's what we originally wanted. Flew out to Vegas, talked to Sean Shelby. I asked him, I said, can I have that position? He's like, no, we want you on the main card to open up the fight. And I was like, you know what, that's sweet too, that's fine. I'm not gonna be able to see the numbers, because all those numbers are gonna be for Connor and Khabib, rightfully so. Like that's what people are tuning in for. It's the biggest fight ever. Now that I'm on the main event of Fox, not only do I get to see the numbers of how many people are viewing, you know, like my goal is I want over 1.5 million views on my fight. Like that's my goal, and I think that's I think that might even be breaking the record of Fox, or like up there with the record, and like that's what I expect out of this fight. But also they're gonna spend millions of dollars promoting that fight. Like if I was fighting on the main card, they're not. It's just like there's Conor Khabib, and then Sean's opening up the main card. This fight, it's like I'm the main event for the Fox. I'm the main fight of the night. And like in my eyes, I'm the main event. Like I just get to go watch fights after my fight, and that's gonna be sweet. So I'm always the main event in my eyes when it comes to a fight. I don't care about any of the other fights. None of those other fights matter. Like it's just my fight's the only one that matters to me. That's about it.
Baby, I'm infatuated. You been held back. I'll get you to graduation, help you with your cash.
cash. Still you clear vaccination, death grip on your ass. I call that assassination. I'm getting carried away, let's get married today. Fuck. Here I go again like White Snake back in the day. I'm crazy and you crazy too, but I love that shit. You're bad and you're broken too, but I love that shit. Just be open to the possibility of me and you. That's all I ask. I've had the hoes, I got the cash, now I want you. Just be open to the